Lives matter. Now, the protest Kaepernick has started, and he didn't really start it, but okay. He's getting a lot of credit for it. And maybe he started in the sports world. I don't approve of it. I think he's disrespecting the flag and the many people who have died to defend his right to do this. But his protest isn't making a bit of difference, people. In fact, all it's doing is making him famous and riling up people. He wants to say he's doing it because Black Lives Matter. He wants to do it because he says violence is escalating, especially against blacks, and statistics are proving that. But the truth is, statistics are proving that violence against law enforcement is escalating. Violence against civilians in general, against schools, against people. Violence is escalating. Mr. Kaepernick would say that blacks want the violence to end, and I'm sure most Americans would agree. They want the violence to end. But I'm still waiting for him to offer one single suggestion of what the solution might be. I remember the 1960s when there was a lot of social unrest, when the blacks in particular became violent even. We had major race riots, shutting down whole sections of major cities where the police just stopped trying to go in and they just do a barricade around it and let people destroy blocks, city blocks. I'm not surprised that Kaepernick doesn't have a solution for this problem. We've had a black man in office as President of the United States for 8 years. And during those 8 years, the violence has escalated. I'm not saying Obama should have done this or Obama should have done that. I'm not saying Obama did anything wrong. I'm saying Obama did not have the answer. And Obama, like him or not, is a smart man. Make no mistake about it. What Kaepernick is doing and these other athletes are doing is encouraging young people, young blacks, to defy authority. He is defying the United States of America and the authorities, in his mind just law enforcement, but the authority that helped build the safety of this country and helps maintain it. Are they doing an adequate job? No. I won't disagree with him. But his form of protest is wrong, people. He's just encouraging more violence. Last week, University of Wyoming football team played at Eastern Michigan, and there were a bunch of students that wanted to, as they said, they wanted to march around the track during the game, the track that goes around the field. And they formed up in one end zone up near the fence. And authorities quickly said, no, you cannot form here. This is part of the field. Well, it was far enough back, nobody really cared. And these people started chanting, no justice, no peace. Well, that's a call to violence, people. And as the game progressed, they kept moving closer and closer. More and more law enforcement officers got there, but they couldn't hold them back. They kept just pushing down a little bit at a time until by the end of the game, they were standing right on the line at the back of the end zone. The officials stopped the game for a moment, talked about it, Game was almost done. They let them finish because the game was going the other direction. And then these people who said they wanted to walk around the track, as soon as the gun sounded that ended the game, they linked arms and marched right out to the middle of the field. And then they came over to one sideline and started chanting, "No justice, no peace." What were they doing? They were defying authority. I understand racially derogatory things were painted on a building on the campus that week. My mama taught me that two wrongs don't make a right. The graffiti was wrong. The response to it was wrong. The violence is wrong. Kaepernick's response to it is wrong because he's inciting violence, protest, and defiance of authority. Many races and people groups in America have faced prejudice from the beginning of this country. In fact, this country was founded because people were being persecuted in England for their religious beliefs. Later on, some of those same people, when people say of Germanic or Scandinavian descent came over and they were Lutheran, there was persecution. When the Irish came over, most of them were Catholic and there was persecution. When the Chinese were brought in, they were brought in as, if not slaves, as virtual slaves, not given good jobs, given the worst. It was a form of persecution. At the end of the Vietnam War, a lot of Southeast Asians were brought over here to America. Our church helped sponsor quite a few. And we saw persecution and prejudice. It's happened throughout the history of this company. Mexican Americans. And I don't like that term, by the way. I use it intentionally here. People of Mexican descent who are now Americans. You got to choose one of the other people. You can't be an African American or a Mexican American. You're an American or an African, a Mexican or an American. Okay? Puerto Rican or American, Chinese or American. Make your choice. Stop straddling the fence. But people of Mexican ancestry, even if they've been here for multiple generations, they face prejudice because Americans have a prejudice against Mexicans crossing the border. Puerto Ricans, I mentioned them, they face prejudice. You don't believe me? Go to New York or Chicago, Puerto Rican neighborhoods. Go down to Florida. You find a spot where there's a lot of Puerto Ricans. You're going to hear about the prejudice. People, prejudice is alive and well in America today, and that's wrong. My problem with the Black Lives Matter movement is they object if somebody else says blue lives matter, white lives matter. Listen, I don't care what race you are. We're all the human race. Get over your racial issues and start treating everyone the same way. That's the only solution there is. It's not going to happen overnight. But it's certainly not going to happen. Blacks have been doing social protests, trying to obtain their rights, longer than any other racial group in America. Some blended in easier because they were already white. I get it. Some blended in because they didn't make a big deal about it and they formed their own little section of town, and I get it. But whether your ancestors came here as slaves, virtual slaves, were prejudiced or whatever, that doesn't matter. It's what you do that matters. You have to exceed the expectations. What amazes me, about all of this is Black Lives Matter protests every time a black person is shot. They don't protest when a white person is shot. They protest when a black person is shot, even if that black person is shot by a black cop. What amazes me even more, having lived in and worked in neighborhoods that are predominantly black, the great number of black people who lived their whole lives without ever getting arrested, without ever getting shot, and they are successful people. As is usual, it is a small number of people that, like Kaepernick, want to use this issue to make themselves more famous. If you are an athlete who is obviously wealthy, if you're a backup in the NFL or the National Basketball Association or Major League Baseball, even if you're a backup, you're wealthy compared to most Americans. So why don't you use your wealth to go into your community, and by your community I mean your racial background, and help your racial group find new ways to fit in society. Yes, a black man is more likely to get shot for this action than a white man. I get it. But if we pay the price today, our children in the future are not going to have that same issue. If we pay the price today, we can change the culture of America. So I'm saying that some black people are going to have to do what other people of other races and many black people have already done. And that is accept, tolerate, and live through the prejudice. Because I'm telling you that when your racial group makes up 13% of America, you are not going to force America to accept you on your terms. It is never going to happen. By your continued protest, you are going to continue to have troubles, continue to struggle. I am not saying deny your heritage. I'm predominantly Scandinavian, Germanic heritage. I'm proud of it. I don't hide it. I don't boast about it. Well, I joke about it sometimes. I have fun with it. But America isn't going to change for you. You have to learn to fit in. Yes, Black Lives Matter. So do all the rest of the lives. What I'm doing is I'm looking at history, saying this is how other racial groups have melded into America. And I'm not just talking about white people. Every racial group that makes up America, every skin color that makes up America, has people that haven't fit very well, and they've got people that do fit very well. They've got people that paid the price so that their children could fit well. I don't like the violence. I think it's wrong. But this way of fighting back, encouraging defiance, is just asking for more violence. It's asking for people to risk their lives. It's saying Blacks need to be afraid of cops. So if a cop tells you to stop, keep running. If you've got a gun and a cop tells you to drop your gun, better hold on to it just in case. This defiance is just going to get you in trouble. To Kaepernick and all of his supporters, stop your protest and start making a difference instead of inciting violence. It's your attitude that is the real problem.